We're in a place called Oussed in Algeria. It is one of the many refugee camps in this country, sheltering thousands of Western Sahara refugees. Now, the reason they left their country in 1975 is because they were running away from fighting between the Saharawi forces and the Moroccan occupational forces, which are still up to now in their country. Despite a ceasefire in 1991 and an agreement for a referendum for the people of Western Sahara to decide on their fate and the fate of their country, the occupying forces of Morocco are still in Western Sahara. Now, today there were celebrations to mark 43 years of national unity of Western Sahara. We've seen celebrations here lasting more than 2 hours. The president of the country, Brahim Ghali, who also lives here in Algeria as a refugee, was among those who attended the ceremony. He began by inspecting a guard of honor mounted by troops from Western Sahara, and after that he delivered a speech thanking the African Union for continuing to support the cause of the Western Sahara and the Western Sahara people, thanking Algeria for having hosted them for more than 40 years inside the country. He said that Africa will not be free until his country, Western Sahara, is free. He says Morocco, the occupying forces inside Western Sahara, continue to plunder their resources. Now, when you look at the map of the continent and look at the natural resources that the continent has, in the areas that are occupied by Moroccan forces in Western Sahara, you find that they have phosphate, they have iron, and there is oil. And so President Brahim, when he was speaking, he spoke about those resources, saying they have not benefited his people since 1975, when they began, when the Spanish left. And so he says there is need for Western nations, for the United Nations and the African Union to put more pressure on Morocco to leave Western Sahara, to allow Western Sahara to have a referendum to decide their fate. Now, a referendum, because in 1991, when the ceasefire between the Moroccan forces and the Sahrawi people was signed, there was an agreement that indeed Morocco would allow the United Nations to stand over and to be the ones that adjudicate a referendum for the people of Western Sahara to decide their fate. We've spoken to a lot of people here, and all of them say that they would want to go back to their country, but this time a country that is free and a country that they can call their own. Now, that has not happened. It is not clear yet if indeed a referendum will happen. Now, Morocco was readmitted into the African Union, and a lot of people seeing that may have been a hindrance to the African Union being able to continue putting pressure on Morocco to leave Western Sahara. But yesterday, on Thursday, we had African liberation movements having a conference here in Algeria, just next to the refugee camps. And they spoke about the need for the African Union to continue pushing and putting pressure on Morocco to leave the occupied Western Sahara territories, and that Western Sahara must be given its time to have a referendum and for it to indeed be independent. They quoted Nelson Mandela saying that Africa will never be free until Western Sahara is free. We will be having celebrations to mark 100 years of Nelson Mandela. A lot of people here fear Nelson Mandela. They hold him in high esteem, and they say because of him and because of his determination to fight the apartheid regime in South Africa, his incarceration for 27 years, they feel they can draw a lot of strength from him and indeed from a lot of freedom fighters in the continent. And so they say as long as Mandela could stay in prison for 27 years, as long as other freedom fighters in Africa could push and indeed find peace and find independence for their countries, they are saying they're not stopping until Western Sahara is free.